This video is brought to you by my amazing programs on building wealth, making passive income, and investing in stocks and real estate, as well as making YouTube videos. Check out the links for all of these down below, and if you join any of them, you get to join me in the live streams that we do every day the market is open. Use that Black Friday month coupon code, and you'll get access to lifetime updates for those programs. Hey everyone, me Kevin here. I've been jumping up and down about this vaccine because, quite frankly, I want to go back to normal. I want to get out of this really cold studio and go back to the normal days of things. Still being stuck in this cold studio, but having the option of going out. But then I came across a headline that reads, how a COVID-19 vaccine could end up helping the virus spread. And when I first read that, I processed it as how a COVID-19 vaccine could end virus spread. But see, I missed a very key part. Look at the headline. End up helping virus spread. And this is really disappointing because I just invested some money into Disney, which I kind of call my pseudo recovery / streaming service stock that I really enjoy because it's not as risky as some of the other recovery stocks. But I have been so excited to go visit that happiest place on earth to pay back some of the amazing gains that I've gotten from that stock this year. But folks, when I read this headline, I got really sad. And the last thing I want is to see an actual lockdown come clamping down our economy, crushing jobs and businesses because we can't get a frickin' vaccine handled right, while making us all depressed at the same time. Now, of course, maybe they'll call it lockdown light to make us feel a little bit better about it, kind of like what they're doing in Germany, or France, or Italy, or Belgium, or pretty much all the Europeans, and then there's also Australia, who locked down for what was supposed to be 60 days, which turned into a 111-day lockdown to crush the virus. Whew. Anyway, over here, meanwhile, we're having a party. We're like, hey, we got a little bit of a dark tunnel to go through, but I see the light. We got a vaccine coming. We're good. After all, we knew a surge of cases was coming. We've been talking about a surge of cases coming since early October when I mentioned, I see an inflection point in the Google Trends search data. You look back at some of my videos from early October and you'll see I mentioned it 3-4 times in 3 or 4 different videos right at the beginning of the month going, this is becoming an issue. We are going to see some higher case counts towards the end of the month in early November, and boom, here we are at the highest record amounts of cases ever, which are all bad. And on one hand, we're thinking, but the silver lining is we just had a vaccine that was announced that's apparently over 90% effective. We could just ignore the fact that the CEO of Pfizer sold $5.6 million worth of stock on the day of the announcement. Not really the best move for, appearances. Not the best PR move at all. He still does own 15 million in stock. So, who knows? Maybe this was just set up to auto sell once it hit a certain price target, which that's what they're saying. But okay, who set that plan up? Anyway, let's get into this Bloomberg article because it's a little concerning. A COVID-19 vaccine apparently could contribute to the spread of COVID if, and they emphasize that they do not know that it does. This isn't like a conspiracy theory. They're just talking science behind actual vaccines. But the science shows that there are actually 2 types of vaccines. So I dug into this a little bit. There's one type of vaccine that creates something known as a sterilizing immunity. Then there's another one that's called a vaccine that basically creates a functional but non-sterilizing immunity. Now, when I think of sterilizing, I just think of Clorox, and I don't think any of us are actually planning on injecting any Clorox. Don't do that. But sterilizing, apparently, when I actually looked at the research of this, a sterilizing vaccine means you don't replicate the virus in your body. You've got enough antibodies so that when the virus is floating around because you got a vaccine with some messenger RNA or whatever, and your body's like, oh, that looks like a predator, we're going to make some antibodies for that. Obviously, very oversimplified. When you have a sterilizing immunity, your body crushes that virus so that it can't spread. You have enough antibodies to basically overwhelm this, any possible hope this virus has of spreading. And this is how vaccines like the human papillomavirus vaccine works, the HPV vaccine. The one that protects against like strands 16 and 18, which have been found to cause cancer in people. This is a sterilizing immunity vaccine. That vaccine, by the way, takes 3 doses. It's the Gardasil vaccine. But anyway, that's a different topic. But see, what's good about the HPV vaccine is if you get the HPV vaccine, you can't give HPV to somebody else. However, with coronavirus cells, it's apparently difficult to get something known as the sterilizing immunity response from a vaccine. In fact, the World Health Organization says that this represents a, quote, significant challenge for the development of specific vaccines against chronic viral infections, which, well, the coronavirus could be, aka, viruses that are like the flu even. This means we won't actually know if people who are immunized via a COVID vaccine are capable of shedding the virus or not until we get the answer, which might not come for many months after people have actually been tracked who have the vaccine to determine if there's any linkage of people getting COVID for being around those people. Kind of difficult to do. But now things get a little bit weird. See, Bloomberg says that, look, as long as we can find that people have enough antibodies in their system, they should technically only be shedding virus debris by just breathing and going about your daily life, which is really weird to think of, virus debris. But anyway, the problem is viruses like the coronavirus are very difficult to track because they're kind of everywhere. And if the only way to know if you don't end up transmitting COVID by having a vaccine is by tracking people who have the vaccine, it's kind of difficult to know for sure that the COVID vaccines that are in production are not spreading any COVID, which is kind of like the craziest irony that 2020 does not need. Yes, 40,000 phase 3 trial recipients having potentially COVID vaccines, obviously some of those are placebos, that in a weird twisted way could in theory actually be spreading the virus. Now, again, we just want to look at the science of this. We don't want to get conspiratorial here because there are implications for what this means for the market. What kind of impact is this going to have on our money? That's what this channel is about. In the rule right now, and this is what's important to remember, right now, none of this is certain. We don't know yet. Does the vaccine provide just immunity for yourself? Does it provide sterilizing immunity to where you're immune but you're not giving COVID to anyone else? And it's entirely possible that this vaccine is just entirely perfect. In fact, what we hear of now is just that it's over 90% effective. But there's also the difference between effective from sterilizing immunity and effective for functional immunity. See, this is where it's like, oh man, Kevin, like, I heard vaccine, I thought vaccine stocks would be good. Like, why do we got to complicate all this stuff? Like, I thought there was light at the end of the tunnel. Well, here's a little bit of a detail as to how this might work. You've probably heard of asymptomatic spread with COVID before, where people can spread the coronavirus without actually realizing they have COVID because they're spreading it without knowing it, without having any symptoms. Well, that's exactly what a functional immunity does. It's kind of like you got exposed to just enough of the virus to build your own antibodies, protect yourself from having any symptoms, yet you can still create a large enough viral load to get somebody deathly sick. Now, again, we don't know if that is happening from a vaccine yet, but we do know that asymptomatic spread exists in COVID, and getting a small dose of COVID and then having asymptomatic spread is kind of like getting a small dose of a vaccine and possibly spreading. Now, we don't know that. Again, we're only basing this off the research that Bloomberg did, and Bloomberg is saying that it is possible, and we don't have the answers. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. Y'all know I'm just looking at this from a money POV. And let's get into the money POV. Obviously, hopefully, knock on wood, this thing just makes you sterilized and immune from ever getting COVID, right? Maybe you get a booster once a year or something like that. Who knows? But let me put it this way. Have you heard of Christine Legarde? She is the president of the ECB, the European Central Bank. She says she's extremely concerned that COVID has now mutated to go from what was likely bats to humans, and then mutated again to where now it's going from humans into minks in Denmark, and now it's mutating back to where it can go from minks to humans, suggesting essentially that all of these mutations could substantially damage the effectiveness of any future vaccine. Now, look, I want to be the eternal optimist here. Generally, and y'all know this, especially those of you in my psychology of money course and stocks and real estate, I'm the eternal optimist. I'm train America, like train technology, like we want to be in the direction of progress, right? I'm very optimistic. But I have to research this stuff because if I'm going to be investing in the markets, I got to know that if in 2 months we hear, oh crap, one of these vaccines is only providing functional immunity, which means people who are vaccinated, who are like, yay, I'm vaccinated, take off my mask, choir, and then they're actually spreading it. It would be good to prepare for that scenario as a stock market investor. It would be good to know that potentially we could have lockdowns if a vaccine fails, and here's an avenue of failure that we can't rule out yet. So again, not going conspiratorial here, just saying we got lots of work left to do. And this like made my eyes go, like, oh crap, didn't think about that. Now, fortunately, Paul Griffin, a professor of medicine at the University of Queensland in Australia, says that it could be that vaccinated people transmit the disease, but it's less likely if people aren't coughing and sneezing. And if you're asymptomatic, you're not coughing and sneezing. Obviously, though, we've heard of plenty of people spreading it via asymptomatic spread. This is why I gave the analogy of singing in a choir. So, this particular doctor says, look, even if we can get a lot of vaccines out there and we get lots of people vaccinated, and at least it's not being spread from coughing or sneezing, at least you're not launching projectiles everywhere, which honestly, I guess is pretty much the same theory as having masks. Still though, another researcher and, responds to another question that remains and says that, here's the thing, this is Vincent Munster at the National Institutes of Health, says that sterilizing immunity may only be achieved for COVID-19 for a short period of time. We have no idea how long it's going to last. So, okay, what that means is you could get a vaccine and then you could have a period of time where you're sterilized immune, but then a period of time where you're functionally immune. And does that mean at some point during this transition you're potentially contagious? I have no freaking idea. Again, not a doctor. Who knows? But the answer is, the doctors don't know yet either. So even if you're a doctor listening to my terrible explanation of vaccines and chemistry or science or biology, I don't even know what branch I'm talking about here, just to make it very clear that I'm just some dude on YouTube wearing a fedora who shaved his head because stimulus checks didn't come, okay? So consider the source. But the point is, when these experts are saying, well, maybe, but we don't know yet. Hello, that makes me think, oh crap, we don't know yet. So in other words, we might be in this situation, the bottom line of all of this, that if you're buying stocks right now solely because of this vaccine, we got to realize it's not just a matter of us having serious headwinds that cases are going up and deaths are potentially going to go up and, hospitals might get overrun. But we also have this concern of, are we going to need a booster? How soon would we need a booster? Within 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years? How long is it going to last? We don't know if we can actually spread the virus after getting vaccinated and basically being asymptomatic. What? Which is like the worst case scenario, because now you have people who are vaccinated who are like, I'm free, and they're spreading. It's like the COVID spreaders, super spreaders that are vaccinated. It's just the last thing 2020 needs. And we also don't know if minks are going to survive, and if they do, will they destroy our chances of getting a solid COVID vaccine? So I don't know about you, but this makes me want to make sure I have life insurance, which I can get in as little as 5 minutes via the link down below. In fact, you don't even have to talk to anybody. You Apple Pay or Android Pay for it, and boom, you're done. But when it comes to buying stocks and playing stocks right now, I really encourage you, especially at the more euphoric times that we've seen here post-election and with this vaccine news, be careful. Even though we know we're going through a dark tunnel and we're coming out ahead with a vaccine, hopefully in 6 months, we don't know how effective or the consequences we might see of this vaccine. So there you have it. If you found this curious, I'll link my research down below, so that way you don't think I'm crazy and conspiratorial. But this is a serious dialogue we gotta have, especially if you're investing in the markets. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.